So on this edition of the podcast, I'm pleased to be joined by a man that I've been wanting to get on ever since I've started creating content on YouTube. Of course, it is Pete Wild, former Halifax and Oldham manager and current Barrow manager. Pete, firstly, how are you doing?
I'm good, Luke. Yourself, mate?
Yeah, very good at the moment. Of course, you've made that move from Halifax to Barrow. It's your second season now at Barrow. Is it going well there?
Yeah, really enjoying it, mate. A really good project. It's nice to go and challenge myself in the league and see if I'm cut out for league management. And so far, so good. A lot of challenges along the way. A lot of things to get your teeth into. But yeah, so far, so good.
Brilliant. That's brilliant to hear. Before we come on to, of course, Halifax, which will probably be my favourite bit of the interview, talking about all of those great moments that we had when you were in charge. We're going to talk a bit about Oldham as well, because there were some great occasions there, and of course at Barrow at the moment. But before we start that, we'll start how you firstly got into football, because you didn't particularly go down the usual route of you've played football professionally and then afterwards got into management and coaching that way. You started from scratch, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, when I left school and college, the only thing I wanted to do was be involved in football. I was quite savvy enough to understand I wasn't going to be able to play football because I wasn't good enough, and I wanted to try and find a way to stay in the game. And I started on a journey of doing my coaching badges. Whilst doing that, having numerous jobs, as people well know, in terms of an apprentice mechanic. My parents owned pubs, so a little bit of pub landlording and cutting trees down and digging holes along the way. And then in the evenings, going out and doing my coaching. And I was lucky enough to pursue that for long enough to make it my job and make it my full time job. And walked in the door as the assistant under 12 coach at Oldham, and ended up the first team manager at the end of it 12 years later. So it was some journey. It was a journey that I really enjoyed, and on all them experiences that weren't football related, probably made me a better person that allow me today to sort of manage people and look after people.
Of course, then, Oldham, being able to manage the club that you supported from being a young boy. How come you've supported Oldham then, and what was that like? Going to watch them as a kid.
Well, I'm an Oldham lad, so I always supported Oldham. I was lucky enough when I started supporting Oldham, we were top of Division Two and heading for the Premier League. And my dad took me down on New Year's Day 1991, sorry, to go and watch Oldham. And they were great times at Oldham, and my dad had been a supporter for 30 odd years. And I have this, I think there's a tradition of the town you come from and who your family support, that you should support them. I'm at the moment just bashing into my 7-year-old son that he must support Oldham Athletic. It's a tough gig at the moment trying to get him to support Oldham, but I firmly believe that your football club and the town you're from's in your blood, and you should follow that dream. And I was lucky enough that when my dad decided to start taking me to watch Oldham, that we were heading for the Premier League, and I saw my team play in the Premier League, and there's still no prouder moment than watching your team play in the Premier League. To go on and then obviously manage the team and walk out 28 years to the day that my father took me on as a supporter, to walk out as the Oldham manager is something dreams are made of, and I'm so proud that I got that opportunity.
You mentioned there trying to get a young lad to support Oldham Athletic. I know it was this man behind me there, Matty Brown, who got me to support Halifax, which was the season just prior to you joining. And then, of course, it's been probably mostly positive ever since, which has been a bit rare, because I know Halifax, ever since we reformed, we haven't had many we haven't hit our heights of what we were before, when we obviously the old Halifax town, but under Neil Aspin, and especially you as well, you brought back those good times.
Yeah, I mean, it was a job that I knew was going to be a challenge. I was still on the crest of a wave from the Oldham experience, and I wanted to try and see where that took me. And going to Halifax was a fantastic opportunity. And David Busworth was fantastic with me, and he allowed me to grow. He allowed me to make mistakes. He allowed me to find my way as a young manager, and he helped me along the way. And he was there every step of the way. And I know since the reforming of the football club and the amount of finances that David has put into that football club and the amount of players and managers that have come out the other side of it, I think it's fantastic. And it was the right club for me at the right time. And Halifax as a town is quite similar to Oldham as a town, and the people are quite similar, and the hardworking, industrious people, and they want to go and see bang for the buck on a Saturday. They want to work hard all week and then go and spend the money watching the team give it their all on a Saturday. And I felt like that I understood that, and I felt like because I understood that, I recruited players that also understood that, and that was sort of something that the culture we try to culture and environment. I know culture gets smashed around everywhere these days. It's more environment than culture for me. The environment we created was one that I think replicated the town and replicated the people of the town.
Yeah, it certainly did. But just flashing a bit back to your time at Oldham and when you took charge there, of course, there were some brilliant moments there. It was a bit of a difficult time. I think we can probably both agree off the field at the time. Was that a little bit difficult for you? Because, of course, you support the club. You wanted the best for the town, the fans, etc. Whilst you knew off the field there were a few problems that had been going on for quite a long time.
Yeah, the thing is, I'd been in there every day, so I knew what the problems were. It wasn't as though I was alien to the problems or I was walking into something I didn't understand. I knew exactly what I was walking into, and I knew exactly where the issues were. But what happens in every small club is that when the manager unfortunately loses his job, that one of the coaching staff has to step up and take that reins. And luckily enough for me is that I could just put all the nonsense that was going on behind the scenes aside and just concentrate on the football. And if it was going to be 1 week, 2 weeks, I was going to give it everything I've got, and I was going to make sure that I made a name for myself. I always wanted a chance in professional football at the highest level in first team football, and that was my opportunity. I was nowhere near ready at 34 for that opportunity, but I had to take it, and I had to try and do the best I could with the tools I had. But again, I think that experience again set me up for my coaching career. And you think when I came in the door at Halifax 9 days before the season started with 3/4 of a squad, it wasn't sort of all roses in the garden when I walked into Halifax. So I'd been prepared for. I'm lucky in that I've walked into projects that needed a lot of TLC in Oldham, Halifax, and Barrow, and I think that experience at Oldham really teed me up for what came in the future.
Did you feel a little bit nervous when you were probably going out there with that Oldham side, knowing that it's your hometown club, and I think we can both agree Oldham's fan base is very, very passionate and very demanding as well. I'd probably agree. Yeah. Did you feel a little bit nervous knowing you were managing your hometown club?
100%, yeah. Everybody in the town, everybody, I could probably name 3/4 of the ground every time I went out as manager. But again, hopefully people give me a little bit of leeway because they knew that there was stuff going on behind the scenes. It wasn't just me doing it. I had to deal with outside influences whilst I was doing it. But they knew it was coming from a solid place, that I was going to give it everything I've got because I was an Oldham lad and an Oldham fan, and every point we picked up, I took as a personal pride that we were moving in the club in the right direction and making sure that it was going in the right direction. You say the Oldham fans are demanding, of course they are, and I know that more than anybody. All fans are demanding, but Oldham seem to be very vocal in their demands. So yeah, I knew exactly what I was going to let myself into. But like I say, the pride I took from every point I picked up was immense.
Yeah, I think during your time at Oldham, we've mentioned the off the field issues. We won't go into that, but I think you steadied the ship there at Oldham during that time. If I remember rightly, you actually did a very, very good job on both occasions. I think your win ratio, on both were probably, you had more wins than losses anyway, which might not sound like a lot, but during that time it really was. But one big moment at Oldham, and this is the moment that you'll probably be most looking forward to talk about, was the FA Cup game against Fulham. What was that like? 4,500, I believe, Oldham fans behind that goal. And not only to be managing a team out there, but to also take them to victory. What was that like?
Well, it was unreal, and like you say, I was sent something the other day actually off an Oldham fan who said that I've got the best post 2000, the best win percentage, and I only did 17 games. So the sort of the stats are probably a bit misguided because I only did 17 games, but me and Chris did a great job both times. I mean, we steadied the ship first time when there was so much upheaval and so much upheaval behind the scenes. Going to Fulham, like you said, fantastic. What a day out. What an occasion. Like I say, 4,000 Oldham fans behind the goal and everybody, like I say, 3/4 of the crowd again. I know you're going to Premier League ground. You got Claudio Ranieri, a Premier League winner in the other dugout. It was just an absolute whirlwind of a day. Roy of the Rovers stuff. There's so many stories and little anecdotes that came out of the day and things that I didn't even think about at the time that months later I went, oh my God, I forgot about that bit. Listen to this story. Oh my God, think about this bit. And the way the game went, going 1-0 down, then missing a penalty, Mitrovic coming on, Andre Schürrle, World Cup winner on the bench for them and things like that. And then getting the winner in the last minute, like you say, stuff dreams are made of, rather over stories, but what a fantastic day for the town because the club had so much down days. There weren't really many up days, and what a great day for the whole town. And then to top it off, it being sort of that occasion and everything that came with that, and then a little appearance on Match of the Day that night, and like I say, unbelievable. And then when we went back in after Paul had left the football club to get them on the verge of the playoffs with the last week of the season being the form side in the league and just missing out on them playoffs. Just that whole 6 months was just surreal, unbelievable moments and so many stories to tell.
What was it like meeting Ranieri then? Because you're a young manager at that point, very, I think, unexperienced because you hadn't managed at that level before, and you're managing against, Fulham and Ranieri, who'd just won the Premier League with Leicester. What was it like meeting him?
Meeting Claudio was unbelievable, and the biggest thing I say to people is that when somebody's had enough, they fidget. And we sat in his office, and he sat there impeccably for half an hour, and he just answered all my questions and spoke in such a fantastic manner to me. I really enjoyed his company. It fantastic to listen and to learn from him, and how open he was, and how open all his staff were whilst we were in his office was just a day that I still remember in high regard.
So, of course, you left Oldham, you went into Halifax, and I know you briefly mentioned it earlier. It wasn't like an easy situation. You didn't get a full summer behind you. I believe it was something like 2 weeks before the season. I believe we only had one pre-season game with you, which was actually against Oldham. What was that like coming into Halifax at that point? Because it wasn't like you had a full summer behind you to bring in your own players fully.
Yeah, I say 9 days before the season started, I was actually waiting to speak to Jamie Fulton about becoming his assistant because I wasn't back in football and I needed to try and get back in. And on the Friday, I was Monday. I found out that Jamie had left the football club, and so I rang David and see if he'd meet me and give me an interview. And a whirlwind sort of 8-9 days where over 2 interviews we sort of clicked, and he offered me the job and went, right, you've got 3/4 of the team. There's a load of trialists here, and we've had one friendly. And there was so much to do. But again, because of the experiences of Oldham and how quick we had to turn things around at Oldham, I realised the opportunity. First day went in, who's a trialist here? Tell me what position you play, what you're after. And we ended up taking 3 or 4 lads because they were good lads. It ended up being brilliant for us. But the reason we took them initially is because they were good lads. You look at Jeff King. Jeff King we took because he was a good lad, and he ended up, look what he's doing at Chesterfield now. And Danny Williams, top lad. And these lads ended up becoming great lads for the football club, but they came in as trialists and we walked in as trialists. So to throw that team together and get our ideas across, I think as much as me and Chris got a lot of credit for what we did, the players should have took as much credit for what happened because they took on board everything we asked them to do, how we wanted them to do it, and went out that first day at Ebbsfleet. And well, again, what an unbelievable day to start your managerial career at Halifax with a 4-1 win at Ebbsfleet, who were sort of a big gun at that time in the league.
I remember when you came in, and that's when I was properly starting to get proper passionate about Halifax. Fullerton had just left. And then, we went down a bit of a different route, bringing in someone that's quite young. But I think what we also found out with you was, this is something that Halifax were dying for, a manager that were showed his passion, and it was something that we really did appreciate. At full time, remember all the fist bumps, and it was brilliant. I remember that pre-season game at Oldham, and I remember thinking the football, and I must have been like 12 at the time. The football's amazing, and I remember the trialists. I think there were Binny Williams, and he looked brilliant that day. Let's put it this way. I think there were a few others as well. Nolan, I remember, and there were a few others as well in that side. And I remember thinking, I generally think we can be onto something this season, and could be in the top half, and maybe fighting for the playoffs after that Oldham game. And then we go to Ebbsfleet, and I didn't actually manage to get down there that day, but I remember looking at my phone and seeing, I didn't even get to watch it, but seeing 4-1, watch the highlights. I think it was like Cameron King's breakthrough season, wasn't it? And
it was, yeah.
That was just some day, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I said, the whole start and the Oldham thing and going back to Oldham, I didn't really want to be going back to Oldham as quickly as I was. But to go back there and to, like you say, to pull that side together and to pull what we were trying to do together. The thing I'd say is that me and Chris always had a clear plan of how we always wanted to do things. So it was quite easy, right? This is our plan. This works at Oldham. We're going to do this here, and let's just see where it takes us. David had said to us, listen, you won't be judged after 10 games, 20 games. Just go and make us competitive, get us out the wrong end of the table, and let's see where it takes us. So the pressure from the board was minimal. It was very much about trying to build something that everybody could get behind. There was a disconnect between fans, staff, and players. We knew that. So we wanted to try and go and build something where we were all on the same page and we were all trying to fight for the same objective. And that was mine and Chris's first touch point was, let's get that going again. Let's get that connect with the fans. Let's build a team that's hard to beat and there's resilient like the people from the town. And let's see where it takes us. And it's amazing when people see a higher purpose and people see a plan and an organisation that they get behind it. And that's certainly what the players did. And that was a huge part of why we started so well.
You mentioned their connection with the fans. I know one thing that I believe you and Chris both did was obviously purchase a drum for the South Stand. Because I remember you saying to some lad, I think you said, "Oh, I hadn't heard the drum in a while. Where's that gone?" And they've said, "Oh, it's broken." So you and Chris offered, to buy one, and it might not sound like a lot to genuine people who are obviously watching, who may not be Halifax fans, but it really was, because it showed that you genuinely did care about the fan base.
Yeah, definitely. Football's an entertainment sport, so if you don't have any fans, you're not onto a great start. I said, did I agree with the fans all the time? No. Did I think some of the things they said were ridiculous? Yes. But at the end of the day, everything came from a good place, and all we all wanted was to win football matches, and we knew that, and the passion that you see from me still today, every game they win, and I get pelters from other fans and from other clubs and players saying, "Why do you celebrate that? Why do you celebrate that every time you win?" Because I don't know when my next win will be. So I enjoy every single win that I've ever had as a manager, and every fan enjoys every single win. So why can't we enjoy it together? So yeah, we wanted that connect. We bought them the drum, but we wanted them to bang it, and we wanted to make sure that they were part of it, because we knew that they were an integral part of what we wanted to do, and to try and get that connect between the club and the fans again, and it certainly worked.
Yeah, I know when the Halifax fans during that first season, like we've said, often I think they were known to be quite critical of what it took a lot basically for the Halifax fans to get behind the manager, and I do mean that it takes a lot. So it was quite surprising to see, the impact that you had basically from the off. You can have no better start than that against Ebbsfleet, but I think you beat Ebbsfleet, then you were Hartlepool, and it might have been Dagenham as well, I believe. And I think it might have been a Hartlepool game. And I think on the 80th minute, the fans were already chanting your name, and that just must have given you so much confidence, at that point in your career when it's your first proper, I think 2-year contract, I believe you had. It must have given you so much confidence.
Well, it did, yeah, definitely. My problem is I've always been a victim of my own success, and that's not to sound arrogant or in any way, shape, or form. We've always started well at football clubs, but you always know that when everything plateaus out, there will be a little everything steadies out, and there will be a little bump in the road, and there always is. And I knew that would come at some point. I knew there'd be a bump in the road, but my thought process was, let's get as many points on the board as we can. So when the bump in the road comes, it's not as harsh. And that first season was fantastic. We did that. Then there was a big bump in the road. I think we won 1 in 13 after from sort of like October onwards, and there was a little bit of a disgruntledness from the fans. But all I always ever said was, well, we'll try as hard as we can every week. Some weeks it'll go away, some weeks it won't. And all we wanted people to do was just try and stick with us through the good and the bad times. And I remember going to Harrogate just before Christmas, and Grimsby had been in contact about the job at Grimsby, and we may be going to Grimsby. And I remember drawing 2-2 at Harrogate, and Harrogate scored in the last minute to equalise. And Harrogate flying that year, they ended up going up. And the fans saying, don't go. And I thought, bloody hell, the week before you were saying I was the worst manager ever because we were 10th. And I was... so across all the seasons, everywhere I've ever been, there's always been good and bad points. But that first sort of 6-8 weeks at Halifax was fantastic. And it really gave us a marker. And it really gave everybody at the club a marker to really push forward.
There's a number of games that we could talk about during those first 10 games specifically, but there's one game that I remember and I felt sick throughout the second half. Chesterfield, where we went 3-0 up, and Chesterfield started coming back. And the first half, we was excellent. And I remember saying, this team is something special. It could be the team that gets us back in the Football League. In the second half, I think what the difference is compared to that and previous seasons is we'd be in that position. Maybe we wouldn't even, but we'd end up bottling it near the end. We managed to hold on and take all 3 points. And I remember you at full time. I think there were like 600 of us on a Tuesday night. And, the atmosphere towards the end of that game was just something that you could probably never replicate again.
We had a good run at Chesterfield, didn't we, across the 3 years? We won 2 out of the 3.
We didn't lose there, I don't think.
Yeah, no, we had a really good record at Chesterfield. And that first year, Michael Fondop come on, didn't he? And ended up scoring a couple of, I remember rightly. But yeah, again, really good memories. You pick the Chesterfield game out. I would pick out, and there was many across the year, but Chorley away, we're winning 1-0 in January at Chorley away. Count King scored a header. And the fans and the atmosphere that day was unbelievable. And we knew that it was a tight affair. And Charlie weren't doing great, and to go there and win, I think that if I think across the season, that was probably my favourite one across the season.
Yeah, I remember that game because I think that was a similar game. I think we took like 600-700 there, and we're in that little shed behind the goal.
Yeah.
I remember we got to January and we won a very bad run. And you mentioned there about getting criticism, and I know a few fans it was starting to creep up a little bit where I wouldn't say doubting you, but you were getting the odd bit of criticism, which I think most fans thought was unfair, but they were the odd couple who were. And I remember you brought in Jack Redshaw, but then also a player from the previous season under Jamie Fullerton, who we were wanting to sign in the summer. The fans were anyway. Devante Rodney bringing back. And I remember when we saw that, we were like, yes, we're the complete side now, because something we probably didn't have that season was a prolific goal scorer throughout the season. And we thought, well, onto something now. We've got Rodney and Redshaw. And we kind of changed, didn't we, as a team as the season went on?
Yeah, we got a good kick in at Stockport, didn't we? I remember getting the kick in at Stockport and thinking we need to change something here. So me and Chris, we had Chesterfield at home a couple of days later. We changed the shape, and it made us harder to beat. It made us more resilient. And like you say, we brought Devante in and Jack to try and give us some more goals in the attack. And if I remember, across January, we ended up being unbeaten across January and really giving ourselves a foothold across that. So, yeah, again, sometimes it needs a kick in. Every team gets one at some point across the season for you to change something. And that was the sort of changing point, change of shape and bring a couple of lads in as reinforcements.
Yeah, I know as the season went on, of course, COVID happened. And that kind of spoilt the season to a certain extent, because we didn't know if the playoffs were going to go ahead. We were a bit inconsistent at that point, if I remember. And then we had the playoffs against Boreham Wood. We got in and we were playing against Boreham Wood away, and we've never had a good record there. Before you came in, after you came, and it's just one of those bogey sides. But I remember going into that game, and we were watching it on the streams, and we went 1-0 up, and as soon as we went 1-0 up, I had to leave the house and went for a walk. I'm not even joking when I say that. And yeah, it was a bit of a difficult. It was a difficult day, because we
Yeah,
went 1-0 up. What would your reflection be
we
on that?
ran out. We just ran out of steam, mate. We were great for 60
Yeah,
minutes, but we put so much effort into that 60 minutes that we ran out of steam, unfortunately. And it was hard to tell because we'd had best part of 3 months off, and Bourne would have had not got going, but then got going with that last half an hour, and the tides turned and they finished stronger, and then set piece runs out, gets
yeah.
away from his
I
man
remember.
Reedy, and then scores. And again, you can do all the work you want, but I can't go on and mark on set pieces, and the set piece at the end of the day was the telling thing that beat us, and it was a tough and frustrating day, but in my eyes, an unbelievably successful season.
Yeah, it certainly was on your first season, and I know a lot of the fans online were also right behind you after that and said overall, it's been a brilliant season, and
Mm.
we'll come back stronger. And usually, maybe you'd think, oh, a side's going to fall off now drastically. And the season after, of course, we didn't finish as high up, but we were still in the playoffs for the majority of the season, the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But what was that like, having that full summer to bring in your own players? Because I remember the recruitment was, I thought, superb.
Yeah, I mean, any football club, generally year one's crisis management, and you have a brand of football, or you have you bring in players that can deal with the short term and the crisis management. But in that first summer, we went back full time, and I told everybody that there was no more money, but we're going full time. If you don't like it, then it's not for you. Brownie was one that moved on because he didn't want to do the full time model, and he wanted a better contract to stay full time, and we weren't prepared to give him that. So there was a lot moved on. Cam King, Josh Staunton, and there was a lot of disgruntled fans in the summer of why all these players were going. But we had a clear plan that we were going to do it our way, and we were going to develop a plan, even if it meant taking a step backwards to step forwards. And we developed a plan across the summer with a full-time model. And we brought in some really good players, and some players that we thought could really push us on and really drive us on. And like I say, end up finishing 10th in the league after a tough old start. But that season really taught us that we've developed a plan. We know where this is going, and we know how that's going to take us forward. And that second season allowed year 3 for us to have a real good go, because it was about implementing the plan in year 3 and having a real good go at it. We made money on Jake Hyde and Neil Byrne, who come in for free, and we ended up making some real good money on them too. So along the way, we were developing a plan, and we were bringing some much needed finances back into the club as well. So there was lots of successes out of the year 2, even though we only finished 10th.
Of course, just before we move on to season 3, did it frustrate you sometimes when every season there was a massive turnover of players to a certain extent? The first season, of course, like you've mentioned, there were Brown, King, Staunton, etc., who all moved on. The second season, Jake Hyde, Burton made money on them, but also Jeff King left. No, he left. Yeah, he left the second season.
Left at the end of the second season, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that frustrate you?
No, because that's just football. That's the modern game now. Gone are the days of 3 and 4 year contracts. We were bringing lads in on 1-2 year deals if they were lucky, on not great money. So the gig was always, right, listen, if you do well here, you'll move on and you'll get more money. Me and Chris were always just firmly focused on where the next one was. We knew we were going to lose them. That was inevitable because we'd done well. So it was about how we're going to replace him and where's the next one coming from. And that's all we just focused on, was where's the next one coming from. And that's all we're focusing on. So no, didn't frustrate me. I took personal pride actually in the fact that they were moving on and we'd been a little help in their journey.
Season 3 then. We could probably go over every single game, to be honest. I think we only had 3 defeats at home that whole season. We had the best home form in the division. Some exceptional moments. But before we all go on to that, the start of the season, I remember on the forum, everyone was saying the recruitment's awful. I'm not buying a season ticket this season. You definitely proved them wrong, didn't you?
I generally always do, mate. I mean, recruitment is not, for me, not, if you're a Halifax, a Barrow, where we are at the moment, you cannot afford to bring in the ready-made product. you've got to go and you've got to go and make them better, get your hands dirty. And the recruitment, the players we brought in that third season, we were so happy with what we recruited and the sort of potential these boys had to progress. Uh, you look at Jay Ben. We were going to give Jay Ben a chance. Ty Warren, look what he's gone on to do. You look at Naumar getting his opportunity. Jesse Deborah we brought in. The list is end. Jack Senior was in his second season. Harvey Gilmore, what a player he was. Kieran Green, Keane Spence. Mate, there were so many good players, and you look at the club. Most of them have now moved on, but the club has benefited financially unbelievably from how them players started and when they come out. When you recruit players, you recruit them to be football assets, knowing that one day they'll be financial assets. I'm getting the same thing happening at Barrow now. Is we recruit them as football assets, and we now know there's people sort of hovering to make them financial assets. That's just part of football and part of the food chain. So we were really pleased with what we brought in. We knew they were football assets. One of mine and Chris's strengths, and Chris has carried that on in the job he's done now, is he's seen potential, seen players that fit the way that you play, working with them, and then churning them out the other side. And we did a fantastic job, and Chris has continued that job as he's gone forward.
Yeah, he certainly has. And he's someone for me that I felt when you were in charge, he didn't always get the credit that I thought he deserved. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not, because of course you were the main man, you were the manager, but behind the scenes he did a lot as well. What would you just say briefly just about him and when you were in charge?
Within every football club, what we had was key defined roles. So people would have what they would major on. Chris would major on the training ground. I would major on recruitment and the opposition. And we'd sort of stay in our lanes and make sure that because we trusted each other implicitly, that we knew what each other did. And the manager's at the forefront of it to take the abuse when it goes wrong, to take the plaudits when it goes right. But what we always try to do, and what I always try to do, is make sure that everybody understood that it was a team effort and everybody pulled in the right direction. And if the manager could get everybody pulling in the right direction and doing their bit for the football club, of which Chris did a phenomenal job, then we would always be onto a winner.
I know that season, it felt like we were complete in every area, which is something you very rarely have with Halifax. There's always something you think, oh, we should be better going forward. We need a striker, or defensively, we need to tighten up. Midfield, we're weak. Throughout that whole season, we were consistent, and we had players going forward and defensively. The likes of Billy Waters, Jordan Slew, Matty Warburton have probably all three of those players probably had the best seasons that they've had throughout their whole career that season, defensively as well. What was that like with that group? Because it felt like they were a very, very tight group.
The group were good. I mean, all the messages were simplistic. We kept everything simplistic. We knew how we play. We knew we wanted to be front footed. We knew we were athletic. So we'd had 3 years to prepare, 2 years to prepare for that third year, which we knew the league, we knew where we were going, we knew the teams we were coming up against, we knew the players we were coming up against, and we knew what would sort of work week in, week out. And you saw that, and I think you saw that sort of unity because everybody knew what the job was, everybody knew what the system of play was, and everybody implemented that to the thing. And we give the players license to go out and express themselves. In Billy Waters getting 20 odd goals, Matty Warburton was unbelievable. That Jordan Slew's best return of his career in terms of that. So they're the three you've mentioned there, and there was so many more. Keane Spence, Kieran Green, Luke Summerfield, sort of holding it together behind them. So the system of play, the recruitment suited the system of play, and it allowed us to go on and express ourselves in the way that we did.
So I just want to talk about a few specific games in that season, because there's a lot you could talk about within that season as a whole. Stockport at home, Southend at home. The list goes on, working away, just at the start of the season. Even Bourne Wood getting a point there. But there's one game that I think is probably the best game I've probably attended ever, watching Halifax Town. You probably know which one I'm going to talk about. Notts County at home. Yeah. Do you just want to say a bit on that? Because we were 2-0 down and we came back and won 3-2. But not only that, with 10 men.
The madness was we were playing really well at 2-0 down. We were really pleased with how we were playing and how we were going about our business. And when we went out at 10 men, it was like, right, we're 2-0 down. What do you want to do? We might as well go. Let's have a go. So we changed it and we went real front footy in how we played, and the 3 goals we scored was so typical Halifax goals of the time and of how we went about our business. But the turning point was us being brave from the side of the pitch and going, "Go on, let's have a go. Let's see if we can get back in it. Who knows?" And that really rocked Notts County because they thought we'd just sit in and see the game out at 2-0, and we really went, "Go on, then we'll have a go," and we did. And like I say, some of the unbelievable goals you'll see in a football pitch. And Elliot Newby, who plays for me now, that was his debut, and he came in and went, "Is it like this every week?" And I said, I hope it will be." But yeah, so that was a great. They were great times.
Yeah, it certainly was a special evening. And I know before that it was kind of like taking a lot for the fans to really get behind you, if you get what I mean, that season.
Yeah.
But after that, it were like every single game were like it was just bouncing. It felt like anyway, away games, home games. It was just a season that I don't think we could ever replicate again, to be honest. Just other games that I'm thinking of in that second half of the season. Notts County away, even getting a point there. When we went down to
again. Yeah.
yeah, there's
Dagenham
so
away
many
3-1. Won
yeah,
3-1.
that's
We were
another one.
so good
I
at
remember,
Dagenham away. So
I
good.
remember, I remember attending that one at Dagenham away because who was it who scored? Billy Waters, and I don't know.
Warby scored a worldie as well. I remember Warby scoring a worldie.
Yeah,
So yeah, again, the ground we hadn't done really well at, and went there and completely dominant at Dagenham away. It was just a really pleasing seeing that. I just felt we were picking up injuries. The young guns had run the race 2 weeks ago. I could see it just before the Aldershot game at home. I'm like, oh my God, I'm running low on numbers here.
yeah,
The Keane had got an injury, and then a couple of others had got. Luke Summerfield had got an injury in training, and you're like, we're running out of gas here. We
yeah,
put so much effort in, and I could just see it. And I mean, Stockport away, I didn't play anybody who I remotely thought would play against Chesterfield the week after. It was just very much about. I remember after Stockport away, giving them all 4 days off just to see
yeah.
if they could galvanise, so get them to get some more in the legs. But I remember Chesterfield and Keane pulling out in the warm up in the playoffs and thinking, we've nothing left here.
And it felt that Chesterfield game, every game at home that season, it felt like I just felt like we were going to go and win whoever we played. Chesterfield actually in the league. I remember going into that,
brilliant.
and
Brilliant.
it was brilliant, wasn't it? That was probably alongside the Notts County game, one of the best games I've had at home as well.
That was great. No, great. And like I say, unbelievable season, 81 points. I mean, for Halifax to get 81 points in the National League, I think it's unbelievable. And I think it's testament to that group of players for getting us that points tally. And I'm sure Chris is vying to try and to beat that points tally, but that is some marker laid down for Halifax teams in the future to try and attain.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned there about us coming up short, and I know that Aldershot game, Solihull Moors were right on our backs, weren't they? And that Aldershot game, we'd gone 1-0 up, and we probably should have gone 2-0 up. And they just caught us on break. And I know after that, I think you were meant to actually, you did in the end as well. Like we're giving you a lap of honour, and just remember after the game, and you could just feel the tension. Oh God, now we're having to go to Stockport, and when you're going somewhere like that, when they're about to win the league, you're not really. You've got no chance, have you?
No. We went to try and win at Stockport. We tried everything. We tried to contain them. We tried to hit them on the break, but we were running out of players.
Yeah, and then of course the playoffs. I know you've mentioned it there, but it's just a typical Halifax thing to happen. Is you've got Spence in the lineup, and then you have to bring him out when he was properly in form and was probably one of the key players towards the end of the season. Bang, he's injured, and I think we had Green coming back from injury, who was pivotal.
He was really
it just didn't feel like it was our day, and I know after that game, it just felt like we were a bit hard done to be fair, for you, the players, and everyone, just because of how everything felt.
Yeah, it was a tough night, Chesterfield, and we'd done everything. We tried everything. We had left what we had left. Like you say, you had 2 midfield. You had one coming back for an injury, one pull out in the warm up, and like I say, we tried everything on that night. But like I say, I think our race was unfortunately run, And
Yeah.
because we put so much time and effort, everybody into that season, unfortunately, at the end of it, we were done.
Yeah, a little unfortunate, like I've mentioned that season, but I think overall in those 3 years, probably every season what were good, it were competitive near the top of the league. There were never a season where we were fighting relegation or we were just mid-table. They were just all entertaining seasons, and I can say this from the bottom of my heart: the whole fan base, adored you when you was at the club, and still do now.
Well, no, that's really nice, and thank you for that. I tried my best. I tried as hard as I could. I'd like to think that I left the club in a better place than when I walked through the door. I would certainly like to think that we put the club back on the map, and we gave not just the club an identity again, but like I say, look at the players that have moved on and the finances the club have got from them players that have moved on, and I think that's created a production line for Halifax for the next 5 seasons for them to be football or financial assets for the
Yeah.
football club. I think that's as important as anything.
So just finally on Halifax, then, like you mentioned the Grimsby job and Grimsby coming in for you. I'm sure that was something regular that happened in the whole 3 years where clubs had come in. What was it that kept you at Halifax?
I mean, again, things had to be right. I mean, I was very lucky. Certainly that last season, about 8 job offers, and I don't like leaving clubs in the middle of the season. Sometimes you have to, but I didn't really want to. The club had to be right. Me and David had a phenomenal relationship, and we understood each other, and I understood. He always stuck to his end of the bargain, and I always stuck to the end of mine. And I always want to work for a chairman or an owner that I know that we're both getting out of it what we set out to achieve. So that had to be right. And again, that final season, I classed it as implementing a plan. So we'd crisis management year 1, develop a plan year 2, and implement a plan year 3. And I wanted to implement that plan. Football, if you're lucky enough, football as manager generally goes in 3-year cycles. And I thought the 3-year cycle, it needed finishing. It needed to have an end to it.
Would you have like any regrets at Halifax? Maybe something that you might have wished that you could have just done
Well,
at
that's
Halifax?
the utopia was I wish we'd have got him into the Football League. It'd have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
But in life, I generally don't have many regrets. I just go
Mhm.
about my business as try as hard as I can, and if it's good enough, it's good enough. If it's not, it's not. And at the end of that final season, I knew 9, 10 players weren't going to resign. I knew they'd already told me they were going.
Mhm.
So it had been a complete rebuild. And I thought I had a lot of job offers, and I thought if I'm going to go, now's the time. The club can cash in on me. So me moving to Barrow, the club got money for me moving to Barrow. Barrow had to pay compensation for me going to from Halifax. So I just thought it was time for somebody else to have a go and see if they could build on the work that we'd done.
So, what was your best moment then at Halifax? What moment was it for you that you remember still and you love?
Like you say, across I mean, probably year 3 when you've rhymed a few off there. Stockport at home, Chesterfield at home on the Easter Monday. That run of only conceding 11 goals at home all season and only 3 defeats at home. I think if you wanted a moment, I think that in itself was an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah, it certainly was. We've still got a good home record now, but that season, we just knew we were never going to concede, and every game we went into it knowing we were most likely going to win. But of course, Barrow then,
Yeah.
an opportunity that came around, one that I think maybe Halifax fans were, and maybe just genuinely everyone were a bit shocked that you'd gone there. You'd been rumoured to go there, but I think maybe, and please don't take this the wrong way here, but people were thinking maybe you could have maybe got a better opportunity at, Bradford
Um,
City, at Grimsby, maybe.
There'd been some offers on the table, nothing as concrete. There were some offers from the National League, which I didn't really want to jump sideways. If I was going to go, I wanted to go and challenge
Yeah.
myself in the league above. And the budget on offer at Barrow and the owners, 3 local owners, 3 people that I thought had the hearts in the right place. I didn't want to jump too high. I wanted an incremental rise so that I wasn't jumping too ahead of myself. I wanted to learn League 2. I need to get my head back around League 2. And I thought that the budget and the finances that were on offer at Barrow gave me the massive opportunity to replicate what I've done at Halifax. And And that was, I put all them things into a melting pot. Chris had decided he didn't want to go and he wanted to stay, and he hadn't made it clear to me he wanted to be the manager, but he wanted to stay around and see what happened, and that was fine. And I decided that I needed to go and challenge myself at the next level, and Barrow were happy to pay Halifax the compensation. And all in all, I thought it was a good fit. Barrow training Manchester. I didn't want to leave home, so being in Manchester was fantastic.
Yeah, it certainly was. I know Barrow training Manchester, like you've just mentioned there. Of course, Barrow. Something that I do see similar with Barrow and Halifax is that they're in similar positions in the respected divisions. Barrow's somewhere that I felt, and maybe you'll agree with this, there was a bit of a project there where there's potential. Maybe is that what you felt?
There's massive potential at Barrow. There's no doubt. They've got 3 owners who are driven to try and get us to the top of the table. Look at our recruitment this summer. Look at the types of players we brought in the summer. We've brought in some football assets in Keane Spence's, etc. We think we're going to get better, and we're going to brought in the likes of Jamie Proctor, David Worrell, Dom Telford. So there's a huge potential at the football club. The football club's on the rise, on the terraces and on the football pitch. And again, it's a case of me going, look, we can do it again here. Look what we've done again here, and look what we're trying to do again here. And we're trying to build a football club that was not going anywhere, treading water. And hopefully now, when we speak to Barrow fans, I'm sure they'll concur that we're moving in the right direction.
So what would you say your ambitions are for Barrow then?
Well, I've said this publicly to Barrow fans. If the worst job that I do at Barrow is, or we do at Barrow, is that we make them a top 10 League 2 club, then what a fantastic achievement. But again, we're punching above our weight. We've just missed out on the playoffs. It was the 5th best finish in the club's history last year, and I want to be in that top 5 finishes in the club's history again this year, and that's the challenge. Why wouldn't it be? I don't go to any football club or go into any job thinking that I just want to steady the ship. I want to go and prove to people that we can do it again and we can overachieve like we've done in the past.
So when you were in the National League, what managers did you rate then?
Right. Well, I'm not probably going to get into rating and things like that, but a person I lent on who I had a lot of respect and time for, who helped me a lot as a young manager, was Neil Ardley, and he was a fantastic bloke. He's a fantastic coach, and every club he ever does to, again, he improves and he gets them up near the top end of the league, and he's a fantastic coach, but more importantly, he's a fantastic bloke.
Yeah, he certainly is. Of course, he's at York at the moment, and I know he's doing a good job there at York because they've had a bit of a difficult start to the season, and they've turned it around, I think, in recent weeks. Of course, they beat Southend, but but Pete, I think that more or less wraps things up. Thank you very much for joining me.
Problem,
you've been someone I've wanted to get on from the start, and it's been brilliant to speak to you.
Excellent, mate. I'm going to the Halifax Dagenham game tomorrow night, so I'll see you around, mate.
Yeah, I might be. See you then. Bye.